morning. This is Ken Blaylock with SDG Bible Study. That's the Soli Deo Gloria Bible Study coming to you on this Sunday morning, April the 18th, 2026. Hope everyone is up and about and ready to be in God's house today, worshiping our great God, worshiping Him in spirit and in truth, and where God's word is preached without apology. And I hope you want to be with God's people this morning. But before we head out to church, let's get into God's word this morning as we're going to continue reading from the reading plan as it happened, a 1-year walk chronologically through the Bible, and Daily Doctrine, a 1-year guide through systematic theology. This morning, we're going to be in the book of 1 Samuel. We'll be in 4 chapters and then a reading from the Psalms. So join me as we read God's word together. 1 Samuel chapter 28. Now it happened in those days that the Philistines gathered their armed camps for war to fight against Israel. And Achish said to David, "Know assuredly that you will go out with me in the camp, you and your men." And David said to Achish, "Very well, you shall know what your servant can do." So Achish said to David, "Very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life." Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented for him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. And Saul had removed from the land those who were mediums and spiritists. So the Philistines gathered together and came and camped in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they camped in Gilboa. Saul saw the camp of the Philistines and was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. So Saul asked of Yahweh, but Yahweh did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim or by prophets. So Saul said to his servants, "Seek for me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servants said to him, "Behold, there is a woman who is a medium at Endor." Then Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes, and he went, he and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, "Divine for me, please, and bring up for me whom I shall say to you." But the woman said to him, "Behold, you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off those who are mediums and spiritists from the land. Why are you then laying a snare for my life to bring about my death?" Then Saul swore to her by Yahweh, saying, "As Yahweh lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing." Then the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" And he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." And the woman saw Samuel and cried out with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, "Why have you deceived me? For you are Saul." And the king said to her, "Do not be afraid, but what do you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I see a divine being coming up out of the earth." And he said to her, "What is his form?" And she said, "An old man is coming up, and he is wrapped with a robe." And Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and prostrated himself. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" And Saul answered, "I am greatly distressed, for the Philistines are waging war against me, and God has turned away from me and no longer answers me, either by the hand of the prophets or by dreams. Therefore I have called you, that you may make known to me what I should do." And Samuel said, "Why then do you ask me, since Yahweh has turned away from you and has become your adversary? So Yahweh has done accordingly as he spoke by my hand. For Yahweh has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor, to David. As you did not listen to the voice of Yahweh and did not execute his burning anger on Amalek, so Yahweh has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, Yahweh will also give over Israel along with you into the hands of the Philistines. Therefore tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. Indeed, Yahweh will give over the camp of Israel into the hands of the Philistines." Then Saul quickly fell full length upon the ground and was very afraid because of the words of Samuel. Also there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no food all day and all night. And the woman came to Saul and saw that he was terrified, and said to him, "Behold, your servant woman has listened to your voice, and I have taken my life in my hand, and have listened to your words which you spoke to me. So now also please listen to the voice of your servant woman, and let me set a piece of bread before you, that you may eat and have strength when you go on your way." But he refused and said, I will not eat. However, his servants, together with the woman, urged him, and he listened to them. So he arose from the ground and sat on the bed. And the woman had a fattened calf in the house, and she quickly sacrificed it. And she took flour, kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread from it. And she brought it before Saul and his servants, and they ate. Then they arose and went away that night. 1 Samuel 29. Then the Philistines gathered together all their camps to Aphek, while the Israelites were camping by the spring which was in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines were proceeding on by hundreds and by thousands, and David and his men were proceeding on in the rear with Achish. Then the commanders of the Philistines said, What are these Hebrews doing here? And Achish said to the commanders of the Philistines, Is this not David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, who has been with me these days, or rather these years, and I have found no fault in him from the day he deserted to me to this day? But the commanders of the Philistines were angry with him, and the commanders of the Philistines said to him, Make the man return, that he may return to his place where you assigned him, and do not let him go down to battle with us, or in the battle he may become an adversary to us. With what could this man make himself acceptable to his Lord? Would it not be with the heads of these men? Is this not David, of whom they sing in the dances, saying, Saul has struck his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Then Achish called David and said to him, As Yahweh lives, you have been upright, and your going out and your coming in with me in the camp are pleasing in my sight. For I have not found evil in you from the day of your coming to me to this day. Nevertheless, you are not pleasing in the sight of the Lord's. So now return and go in peace, that you may not do evil in the sight of the lords of the Philistines. And David said to Achish, But what have I done? And what have you found in your servant from the day when I came before you to this day, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of my Lord, the king? But Achish answered and said to David, I know that you are pleasing in my sight, like an angel of God. Nevertheless, the commanders of the Philistines have said, He must not go up with us to the battle. So now arise early in the morning with the servants of your Lord who have come with you, and as soon as you have risen early in the morning and have light, go. So David arose early, he and his men, to go in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Jezreel. 1 Samuel chapter 30. Then it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had made a raid on the Negev and on Ziklag, and had struck Ziklag and burned it with fire. And they took captive the women and all who were in it, both small and great. They did not put anyone to death, and carried them off and went their way. Then David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. So David and the people who were with him lifted their voices and wept until there was no strength in them to weep. Now David's two wives had been taken captive, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. Moreover, David was greatly distressed because the people said to stone him, for all the people were embittered, each one because of his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in Yahweh his God. Then David said to Abiathar, the priest, the son of Ahimelech, Please bring the ephod near to me. So Abiathar brought the ephod near to David. And David asked of Yahweh, saying, Shall I pursue this band? Shall I overtake them? And he said to him, Pursue, for you will surely overtake them, and you will surely deliver all. So David went, he and the 600 men who were with him, and they came to the brook Bezor, where those left behind remained. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 were too exhausted to cross the brook Bezor, remained behind. Then they found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David and gave him bread, and he ate, and they provided him water to drink. They gave him a piece of fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins, and he ate. Then his spirit revived, for he had not eaten bread or drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, "To whom do you belong? And where are you from?" And he said, "I am a young man of Egypt, a slave of an Amalekite. And my master forsook me when I fell sick 3 days ago. We made a raid on the Negev of the Kerethites, and on that which belongs to Judah, and on the Negev of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire." Then David said to him, "Will you bring me down to this band?" And he said, "Swear to me by God that you will not put me to death or surrender me into the hands of my master, and I will bring you down to this band." So he brought him down, and behold, they were spread over all the land, eating and drinking and celebrating because of all the great spoil they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. Then David struck them down from the twilight until the evening of the next day, and not a man of them escaped, except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. So David delivered all that the Amalekites had taken, and delivered his 2 wives. Indeed, nothing of theirs was missing, whether small or great, sons or daughters, spoil or anything that they had taken for themselves. David brought it all back. And David took all the sheep and the cattle which the people drove ahead of the other livestock. And they said, "This is David's spoil." Then David came to the 200 men who were too exhausted to follow David, who had also remained at the brook Bezor, and they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him. And David approached the people and greeted them. Then all the evil and vile men among those who went with David said, "Because they did not go with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we have delivered, except to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart." Then David said, "You must not do so, my brothers. With what Yahweh has given us, who has kept us and given into our hand the band that came against us, and who will listen to you in this matter? For as the portion of the one who goes down to the battle, so shall the portion be of the one who remains by the baggage. They shall be apportioned together." So it has been from that day forward, that he made it a statute and a judgment for Israel to this day. Then David came to Ziklag and sent some of the spoil to the elders of Judah to his friends, saying, "Behold, a gift for you from the spoil of the enemies of Yahweh, to those who are in Bethel, and to those who are in Ramoth of the Negev, and to those who are in Jader, and to those who are in Eshtemoa, and to those who are in Rachal, and to those who are in the cities of the Jerahmeelites, and to those who are in the cities of the Kenites, and to those who are in Hormah, and to those who are in Bor Ashan, and to those who are in Attic, and to those who are in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men went about." 1 Samuel chapter 31. Now the Philistines were fighting against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines closely pursued Saul and his sons, and the Philistines struck down Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. And the battle became heavy against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was badly wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and pierce me through with it, lest these uncircumcised come and pierce me through and abuse me." But his armor-bearer was not willing, for he was greatly afraid. So Saul took his sword and fell on it. Then his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, so he also fell on his sword and died with him. Thus Saul died with his 3 sons, his armor-bearer, and all his men on that day together. Then the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley with those who were beyond the Jordan saw that the men of Israel had fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead. So they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and lived in them. Now it happened on the next day that the Philistines came to strip the slain, and they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. Then they cut off his head and stripped off his weapons and sent them all around the land of the Philistines to proclaim the good news to the house of their idols and to the people. And they placed his weapons in the house of Ashtaroth and fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. Then the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul. So all the valiant men arose and walked all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan. And they came to Jabesh and burned them there. And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Now to Psalms chapter 18. For the choir director of the servant of Yahweh of David, who spoke to Yahweh the words of this song in the day that Yahweh delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, I love you, O Yahweh, my strength. Yahweh is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon Yahweh, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me, and the torrents of vileness terrified me. The cords of Sheol surrounded me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called upon Yahweh and cried to my God for help. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry for help before him came into his ears. Then the earth shook and quaked, and the foundations of the mountains were trembling and were shaken because he was angry. Smoke went up out of his nostrils, and fire from his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens and came down with thick darkness under his feet. He rode upon a cherub and flew, and he sped upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his hiding place, his canopy around him, darkness of waters, thick clouds of the skies. From the brightness before him passed his thick clouds, hailstones, and coals of fire. Yahweh also thundered in the heavens, and the Most High gave forth his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. He sent out his arrows and scattered them, and lightning flashes in abundance, and threw them into confusion. Then the channels of water appeared, and the foundations of the world were laid bare. At your rebuke, O Yahweh, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. He sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of the many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my disaster, but Yahweh was my support. He brought me forth also into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. Yahweh has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands. He has recompensed me. For I have kept the ways of Yahweh and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his judgments were before me, and I did not put away his statutes from me. I was also blameless with him, and I kept myself from iniquity. Therefore Yahweh has recompensed me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands before his eyes. With the kind you show yourself kind, with the blameless you show yourself blameless. With the pure you show yourself pure, and with the crooked you show yourself astute. For you save an afflicted people, but eyes which are lifted up you bring down. For you light my lamp, Yahweh my God illumines my darkness. For by you I can run upon a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. As for God, his way is blameless. The word of Yahweh is tried. He is a shield to all who take refuge in him. For who is God but Yahweh? And who is a rock except our God? The God who girds me with strength and makes my way blameless. He makes my feet like hinds' feet and sets me upon high places. He trains my hands for battle so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have also given me the shield of your salvation, and your right hand upholds me, and your gentleness makes me great. You enlarge my steps under me, and my ankles have not given way. I pursued my enemies and overtook them, and I did not turn back until they were consumed. I crushed them so that they were not able to rise. They fell under my feet. For you have girded me with strength for battle. You have subdued under me those who rose up against me. You have also made my enemies turn their backs to me, and I destroyed those who hated me. They cried for help, but there was none to save. even to Yahweh, but he did not answer them. Then I beat them fine as the dust before the wind. I emptied them out as the mire of the streets. You have delivered me from the contentions of the people. You have placed me as head of the nations. A people whom I have not known serve me. As soon as they hear, they obey me. Foreigners cower before me. Foreigners fade away and come trembling out of their fortresses. Yahweh lives, and blessed be my rock, and let the God of my salvation be lifted high. The God who executes vengeance for me and subdues peoples under me, who delivers me from my enemies. Surely you lift me above those who rise up against me. You rescue me from the violent man. Therefore, I will give thanks to you among the nations, O Yahweh, and I will sing praises to your name. He gives great salvation to his king and shows loving kindness to his anointed, to David and his seed forever. That's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text. Now on to reading from Daily Doctrine. Day 109, Baptist Covenant Theology. Although covenant theology is usually associated with confessional Reformed churches and confessional Presbyterians, there is a long history of covenant theology in the Baptist tradition as well. In October 1658, a group of independents and Congregationalists met at the Savoy Hospital in London to draw up a revision of the Westminster Confession of Faith that reflected their commitment to congregational church government. Was the now little known Savoy Declaration. This document in turn would be revised 2 decades later and become the classic Baptist summary of faith known as the 1689 Baptist Confession of Faith, also called the London Baptist Confession, or sometimes the Second London Baptist Confession, to distinguish it from another Baptist confession written in 1644. Written in 1677 as of the Westminster Confession, the London Baptist Confession is a Reformed document in many ways. It is Calvinist and even includes some additions that Reformed Christians welcome. For example, an augmented statement on the Trinity. As one would expect, the most significant differences have to do with the doctrine of the church and the sacraments. These differences touch on covenant theology as well. To cite one crucial example, the London Baptist Confessions says that the one covenant of grace is revealed, not administered, as the Westminster Confession puts it. The Westminster Confession of Faith 7:5. By various arrangements throughout redemptive history, the London Baptist Confession 7:3. In Baptist theology, the various covenants of the Old Testament bear witness to the covenant of grace, but the covenant of grace is only finally and truly administered in the new covenant. The various covenants of the Old Testament communicate the benefits of Christ, not in terms of communion with Christ, but in that they impart information about Christ. In traditional Reformed covenant theology, by contrast, Christ is in, with, and under the types in the Old Testament. More recently, some Baptists have sought to find a middle ground between dispensationalism and covenant theology. This middle ground has been called New Covenant theology, or in a slightly different form, progressive covenantalism. Unlike traditional dispensationalism, progressive covenantalism does not employ a bilateral covenant scheme, i.e., a covenant of works and a covenant of grace. It does not consider the Ten Commandments an expression of the binding moral law of God, and it does not consider earlier covenants to be an administration of God's redemptive plan like the new covenant is. While Reformed Christians can appreciate some of the emphasis in progressive covenantalism, they still disagree at the foundational level as to how new is the new covenant. To use an analogy, we might ask whether the establishment of the new covenant moves us in God's redemptive economy, from a mouse to a cat or from a puppy to a dog. The nature of the covenant community, the recipients of baptism, and the way in which the church becomes visible, is it by God's promise or by our commitment, are all related to the question of whether the new covenant is fundamentally something different or the same essential thing brought to fullness and completion. Covenant theology answers this question by seeing the new covenant as a grown-up dog, not a different animal entirely. And that's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text and from Daily Doctrine. I hope you've enjoyed the reading this morning. A lot went on in our reading from the biblical text as we see Saul and the woman from Endor, sometimes called the witch of Endor, the medium, and him bringing up Samuel, which is a bizarre thing to think about. But then we see Saul and his sons, especially the dear Jonathan to David, lives being taken. And then Saul falling upon his own sword. We see David with the Philistines and the refusal of the Philistine lords to allow David to go out with them in battle. And then the raid on Ziklag and David pursuing those men that made the raid, that band, that troop of men, and gathering everything back, getting all their spoil and the wives and children. And then we see the Psalm from David. And then we read about Baptist covenant theology. I hold to the London Baptist Confession. I'm a 1689. Even my shirt I'm wearing this morning speaks to that. I do not, however, hold to the progressive covenantalism, because I'm not a dispensationalist. I consider myself a amillennialist, and we can get into that at a further date, but I do hold to that there being covenants in Scripture, not dispensations. And I hope you enjoyed the reading this morning. It's been a lengthy reading, but it's been good this morning. I hope you've enjoyed it. Soli Deo Gloria. Have a blessed day in the Lord.